When a ruthless, designer-wearing bank manager ordered his security team to drag a homeless old man out into the street, he thought he was just protecting his elite branch from a filthy peasant. He laughed at the thick mud on the old man's work boots and publicly humiliated him in front of his wealthiest clients. But he had absolutely no idea that this quiet man in the torn canvas jacket didn't just have a checking account there. He was the billionaire agricultural magnate who owned the entire bank. This is the story of brutal financial karma and why you should never, ever judge a man's net worth by the dirt on his clothes. The morning started like any other at the flagship branch of Sterling and Oak Financial. Located in the wealthiest district of the city, this wasn't a bank for ordinary people. There were no long lines, no screaming children, and no cheap plastic pens chained to the desks. It was an oasis of absolute, silent luxury, featuring imported Italian marble floors, mahogany desks, and complimentary champagne for clients. The man in charge of this elite branch was Nathan. Nathan was a 32-year-old hotshot director who cared about exactly two things: his multi-million-dollar bonus and his immaculate public image. He wore a custom-tailored Tom Ford suit, heavily gelled hair, and a smirk that made it perfectly clear he believed he was better than everyone else in the room. Nathan was standing near the front entrance, proudly observing his flawless lobby, when the heavy glass doors slowly pushed open. In walked William. William was a 70-year-old man with a face weathered by decades of brutal outdoor labor. He had a thick, silver beard and calloused hands. He was wearing a faded, heavy-duty Carhartt jacket, worn-out denim jeans, and heavy leather work boots. And to make matters worse, those boots were caked in thick, wet, brown mud. William took 3 steps into the pristine bank. With every step, a visible chunk of dried mud fell from his heavy boots onto the immaculate, shining Italian marble floor. Nathan's perfectly manicured jaw dropped. He stared at the mud on his floor as if someone had just committed a violent crime right in front of him. The few wealthy, elite clients in the lobby actually stopped sipping their champagne and gasped, pulling their expensive coats away as if William carried a disease. Nathan's face turned bright red with absolute, blinding fury. He didn't casually walk over. He aggressively marched across the lobby, his leather shoes clicking sharply against the marble, until he was standing inches away from the old man. "Stop exactly right there," Nathan shouted, his voice echoing violently off the marble walls. "Do not take another step into my bank, you filthy old fool." William stopped. He didn't look scared. He simply looked mildly annoyed, like a man swatting away a buzzing mosquito. "I'm here to see a teller, son," William said, his voice deep, gravelly, and perfectly steady. "I have a deposit to make, and my name isn't Fool, it's William." "I don't care if your name is the King of England," Nathan roared, completely losing any sense of professional composure. He pointed a shaking, manicured finger at the mud on the floor. "Look at what you've done to my imported marble. This is Sterling and Oak Financial. This is a private elite institution for high-net-worth individuals, not a homeless shelter. How did you even get past the security guard at the door?" William slowly looked down at the small clumps of mud on the pristine marble floor, and then back up at the red, screaming face of the young bank manager. William had dealt with ruthless corporate sharks and aggressive negotiators for 40 years. A kid in a shiny suit throwing a temper tantrum wasn't going to raise his blood pressure. William reached into the inside pocket of his faded canvas jacket and pulled out a weathered, worn-out leather checkbook. "Son," William said calmly, his deep voice carrying a quiet, dangerous weight, I just spent the last 12 hours walking through the fields of my farm in the pouring rain to fix a broken irrigation line. I am tired. I'm dirty. And I'm simply trying to deposit a check. I highly suggest you lower your voice and let me walk to the teller." Nathan looked at the old, beaten-up checkbook, and a cruel, malicious smirk spread across his face. "Deposit a check," Nathan mocked, his voice dripping with absolute venom. He turned to look at the wealthy clients in the lobby, actively trying to put on a show for them. "What are you depositing, old man? A $20 rebate from the hardware store, a government pension check?" Nathan aggressively slapped the checkbook right out of William's calloused hand. The heavy leather booklet hit the marble floor with a loud smack. "Listen to me, you ignorant peasant," Nathan hissed, stepping dangerously close. "Sterling and Oak requires a minimum account balance of $100,000 just to walk through those glass doors. You don't have an account here. You don't belong here. And you are polluting the air that my elite clients breathe." Nathan didn't wait for a response. He raised his hand and loudly snapped his manicured fingers. "Security! Get over here right now." Two massive, heavily built security guards in dark suits immediately rushed across the lobby. They stopped right behind William, waiting for their manager's orders. "Grab him," Nathan commanded, crossing his arms with a victorious, arrogant smile. "Throw him out onto the sidewalk, and if he tries to come back inside, call the police and have him arrested for trespassing." William didn't fight back. He didn't raise his hands. As one of the large guards grabbed his arm, William simply looked dead into Nathan's eyes. "I'm going to give you one last chance to rethink this, Nathan," William whispered, his voice as cold as ice. "If I am forced to walk out those doors, I am taking every single penny I have in this institution with me, and I promise you, it will be the biggest mistake of your entire life." Nathan threw his head back and laughed, a loud, theatrical, deeply insulting laugh. "Oh, please," Nathan chuckled, waving his hand dismissively. "Take your $40 and go put it in a piggy bank. Get this trash out of my sight." The guards aggressively turned William around and marched him toward the heavy glass doors. William didn't struggle. He simply looked over his shoulder one last time, a chilling, knowing smile forming on his weathered face. Nathan had just signed his own professional death warrant. The heavy glass doors of the bank slammed shut. William stood alone on the bustling city sidewalk. The two security guards stood guard on the inside of the glass, crossing their arms and glaring at him, making sure the trash didn't try to come back inside. William didn't bang on the glass. He didn't shout. He calmly bent down, picked up his weathered leather checkbook from the concrete, and dusted off his faded canvas jacket. Before William makes the one single phone call that will completely obliterate this arrogant bank manager's entire life and career, take just 2 seconds to hit that subscribe button and like the video. It helps us bring you more satisfying stories of true justice every single day. Have you subscribed? Great. Now, let's watch a billionaire show a fake millionaire who really runs the world. William reached into the pocket of his heavy work jacket. He didn't pull out a cheap, outdated flip phone. He pulled out a sleek, top-of-the-line encrypted corporate smartphone. The contrast between his dirty, calloused hands and the ultra-expensive technology was staggering. He bypassed his regular contacts and dialed a private, unlisted emergency number for the Sterling and Oak Executive Board. The phone rang exactly once before a panicked, highly professional voice answered. "Executive Office, Charles speaking. William, is that you? We weren't expecting a call from you today." Charles was the regional vice president of the entire bank network, and he knew exactly who William Vanguard was. William wasn't just a farmer. He was the founder and CEO of Vanguard Agricultural Holdings, a global empire that controlled massive supply chains across 3 continents. William's personal and corporate accounts held over $800 million in liquid cash. His money was the only reason this specific flagship branch of Sterling and Oak even existed. "Charles," William said, his deep voice radiating absolute, icy authority, "I'm currently standing on the sidewalk outside your downtown flagship branch. Your branch manager just knocked my checkbook out of my hands and had me physically thrown into the street because he didn't like the mud on my boots." There was a horrifying, dead silence on the other end of the line. Charles literally dropped his pen. His heart stopped. "William." "Mr. Vanguard," Charles stammered, pure terror bleeding into his voice. "Please tell me you are joking. Did they put their hands on you? I will fire him this exact second. I will have him arrested." "No," William interrupted smoothly, a cold smile forming on his lips. "I want to handle this my way. I want you and the rest of the executive board down at this branch in exactly 15 minutes. Bring the absolute closure forms for all 50 of my corporate accounts. I am withdrawing every single penny from your bank today." Meanwhile, back inside the luxurious lobby, Nathan was pouring himself a glass of complimentary champagne, loudly bragging to a client about how he keeps the bank clean. He had absolutely no idea that a corporate nuclear bomb was currently speeding toward his pristine marble lobby. Exactly 15 minutes later, the peaceful, serene atmosphere of the elite bank was completely shattered. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, Nathan noticed 3 sleek, black corporate SUVs pull up aggressively to the curb, parking illegally right in front of the main entrance. Nathan recognized the license plates immediately. It was the Regional Executive Board. He quickly set his champagne glass down, adjusted his expensive Tom Ford tie, and plastered his absolute best, most charming corporate smile across his face. He puffed out his chest. In his arrogant mind, the executives were probably here for a surprise inspection, or maybe even to offer him a promotion for keeping the flagship branch looking so pristine. The heavy glass doors flew open. Charles, the regional vice president, stormed into the lobby, closely followed by 3 other high-ranking board members. They weren't smiling. They were sweating through their bespoke suits, breathing heavily and looking absolutely panicked, as if the entire building was on fire. Nathan eagerly walked forward, extending his manicured hand. "Charles, gentlemen, what an unexpected honor. Welcome to my branch. We are having a fantastic morning." Charles didn't shake his hand. He aggressively swatted Nathan's hand away, not caring who was watching. "Shut up, Nathan," Charles snapped, his voice trembling with stress. "Where is he? Where is Mr. Vanguard?" Nathan blinked, his fake smile faltering in pure confusion. "Vanguard, the billionaire agricultural magnate. Charles, he isn't here. It's just been a quiet morning. In fact, I just had security remove a dirty homeless man to make sure the lobby stayed perfectly clean for our VIPs. The words hit Charles like a physical blow. He closed his eyes, looking like he was about to pass out right there on the marble floor. Before Charles could speak, the glass doors opened one more time. William stepped back into the bank. He was still wearing his faded canvas jacket, and his heavy work boots stepped right back onto the pristine Italian marble, dropping a fresh piece of wet mud. Nathan's eyes widened in blinding rage. He completely ignored his bosses and pointed a shaking finger at the old man. "You again?" Nathan yelled. "Security! I told you to keep this trash outside. Arrest him immediately." Charles didn't call security. Instead, he grabbed Nathan by the lapels of his expensive suit and forcefully shoved him backward. "Are you completely out of your mind?" Charles roared, his voice echoing violently off the marble walls, stunning every single wealthy client in the lobby. "That man is William Vanguard. He owns 80% of the liquid capital in this entire building. He is our biggest client, and you just threw him into the street." Nathan froze. His brain completely stopped working. He stared at the mud on William's boots and then slowly looked up at the old man's cold, victorious smirk. The realization hit him like a freight train. William Vanguard, Nathan whispered, the name tumbling out of his mouth like ashes. His legs suddenly felt completely numb. The arrogant, untouchable hotshot manager was gone, replaced by a terrified man who had just realized he threw his own career off a cliff. Nathan frantically tried to salvage the unsalvageable. He forced a pathetic, trembling smile and held his hands up in a desperate begging gesture. "Mr. Vanguard, sir, please," Nathan pleaded, his voice cracking into a high-pitched squeak. "This is just a horrible misunderstanding. I didn't recognize you without a suit. We take security very seriously here. I was just trying to protect our clients. Please, let me take you to my private office. I have a bottle of vintage champagne." William didn't even acknowledge Nathan's existence. He looked right past the sweating manager and locked eyes with Charles, the regional vice president. "I built my agricultural empire with my own 2 hands, Charles," William said, his deep voice carrying a quiet, terrifying weight. "I have worn these boots into the mud for 40 years to feed millions of people, and I refuse to trust my family's wealth to an institution that employs a man who actively despises hard work." Charles looked like he was going to be physically sick. He quickly opened his leather briefcase and pulled out a thick stack of elite financial closure documents, placing them onto the nearest marble counter with shaking hands. "William, I am begging you to reconsider," Charles pleaded, his voice filled with genuine dread. "If you withdraw your $800 million today, this flagship branch will instantly fail its liquidity requirements. We will have to close this entire location by the end of the week." "That sounds like a management problem, Charles. Not my problem," William replied smoothly. With quiet dignity, William pulled a cheap plastic pen from the pocket of his faded canvas jacket. He leaned over the marble counter and began signing the closure forms one by one. With every stroke of his pen, millions of dollars evaporated from the bank's ledgers. Nathan watched in absolute horror. "Charles, please," Nathan begged his boss. "You can't let him do this. I have a mortgage on a luxury penthouse. I have a lease on a brand new Porsche. If this branch closes, I'll be bankrupt." Charles turned to Nathan. The fear in the vice president's eyes was instantly replaced by pure, unadulterated hatred. "You are already bankrupt, Nathan," Charles said, his voice dropping to a harsh, unforgiving whisper. "You just destroyed a multi-million-dollar portfolio because of your disgusting ego. You are fired, effective this exact second." "Give me your corporate access card," Charles demanded loudly, ensuring every single VIP client in the lobby could hear him. "Give me your keys and get out of my building before I have those same security guards drag you into the street." Nathan's shaking hands slowly reached inside his tailored suit jacket. He pulled out his platinum corporate access card and placed it on the marble counter. It made a quiet, pathetic click. He looked around the pristine lobby, desperately hoping that one of his elite, wealthy clients would speak up, defend him, or somehow save his job. Instead, they were all looking at him with absolute, unfiltered disgust. To them, he was no longer a hotshot director. He was just an unemployed, arrogant man making a scene. "Escort him out," Charles ordered the 2 security guards. The irony was absolute. The very same massive guards that Nathan had commanded just 20 minutes earlier now stepped up and grabbed him by the arms. There was no gentle treatment this time. They marched the weeping, humiliated former manager across his beloved imported Italian marble floors and forcefully shoved him out the heavy glass doors. Nathan stumbled onto the hard concrete sidewalk, completely ruining his expensive leather shoes. Inside the bank, William finished signing the final closure document. He slid the paperwork across the counter to the pale, sweating vice president. $800 million was officially gone. William calmly put his cheap plastic pen back into his faded canvas jacket and picked up his weathered leather checkbook. "Have a good day, Charles," William said. His voice was completely devoid of malice or anger, which somehow made the absolute destruction he just caused even more terrifying. As William walked out of the bank, leaving the financially ruined branch behind him, he passed Nathan. The former hotshot manager was sitting on the dirty curb, holding his head in his hands, realizing he had just lost his penthouse, his Porsche, and his entire future. William didn't gloat. He didn't say a single word to him. He just walked to his dusty, reliable truck, his muddy boots leaving one last footprint on the pavement. And that brings us to the end of today's story on The Silent Observer. Do you think William was right to withdraw all his money and shut down the entire branch? Or did the hotshot manager deserve a second chance? Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. If you loved seeing this arrogant banker learn the true value of hard work, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss a satisfying story of true justice. Until next time, stay silent and keep observing.